Today we're going to do rotor and brakes on this 07 Silverado. Our first question is whether or not this is a 12 or a 13-inch rotor. Between me and the parts guy, we couldn't figure it out, but it had to be, we're guessing that it's the 13. So we're going to have to take off the tire and measure that rotor and see if we even have the right rotors, or else we have to go back to the parts place and exchange them. The first thing is to remove the little cap with the plastic bolts or nuts in it, so we can get at the real nuts. Those are not the real ones. The real ones are underneath that cap. Okay? Then we got to jack. First we should break them loose. Just enough so they're loose. And then we're going to jack up the car, about the truck, about maybe 5-6 inches, and then remove the tire. This is why I hate Chinese junk. This is a Chinese rotor I put on probably about 15,000 miles ago. The thing is turned to crap already. It looks like pieces of the metal are just falling off. But that's all you can get now, is Chinese rotors. That's what we're going to have to put back on. Let me see, double check, make sure I got the right size. Well, I put it up on my lugs, on the studs that are coming out of the tire here, I mean. And looks like it's the same size. Looks like we're in like Flynn. Now you can see all these extra holes in there. I guess that's to make it fit all kinds of different models of Chevy trucks. One size fits all, I guess. Yeah, I mean, just looking at this metal here kind of gives me the creeps. But that's what you get now. Like I say, normally this job would have cost me $100 to do 3 or 4 years ago. Now it's costing me $200 to do. That's brakes and rotors, front and back. Now what's the first thing going to happen to this thing if we install it just like this? This whole thing right here is all going to turn to solid rust. And our cooling vents in here are going to turn to solid rust and block it off. And this thing is going to overheat and probably do exactly what it was doing here. Okay, so how can we save that? We're going to prime and paint this thing, except for the brake surfaces. Alright? And this way that should prevent it from rusting. Then we will install it. Okay, we're going to clean this thing with lacquer thinner and a sort of clean rag. And we're going to paint all surfaces except where the brake shoes touch. That means basically this whole area right here is going to get masked on the front and on the back, and everything else gets painted, including in here. That's going to be painted first. We're going to make sure this stuff does not rust in there. The trick is going to be to get this oil off of this rotor. I'm going to do the other one too at the same time, but I'm just showing you one right now. Basically, you got to do this to both sides. Just going to cover the surface where the brake pad hits, and we're going to paint everything else. Basically, this is what you're looking for. You still have to flip it over and shoot the back. Most important is to shoot in these veins here all the way through. Now I got to flip it over yet and shoot the back side. My shot with Color Master, it's supposed to be paint and primer. Hopefully that'll make it stick a little better. It's supposed to dry. It's quick drying, that's the big thing. So I can use it today and actually put it on a car. Give this thing about 10 minutes to set up out here in the sun. It's about 60 degrees out now. Working under a car, make sure you always use a jack stand. Now, one of the next things I'm going to do is get that rotor and get a wire brush on it. Get rid of all the loose stuff. Because if you go ahead, the caliper. Because if you go ahead and take that rotor off, the caliper is going to be hanging in the wind. And it's going to be hard to work on. It's perfectly attached here. It's solid. Now's the time to sand it down a little bit. Make it look nice. First thing you want to do is get off as much rust as you can. You might want to start with a sharp chisel to scrape off all that dead paint and paint that's just chipping off, ready to come off. Then after you do that, get yourself a wire brush and go over the whole thing with the wire brush. And then as soon as you do that, you want to get yourself some good rust remover. Put it on. First thing you want to do is take off this bottom bolt that goes right in the back and loosen up this top bolt that's right here. This is going to allow this caliper to tilt up. That is, if we leave that bolt in. Then you have to get this off, take it off, and just maybe set it up on top over here, okay? But then we're going to have to take off this bracket that holds this after we get this off, because that has to come off in order to get this rotor off. Then we can exchange the rotor and put the new one on, okay? Then we can go ahead and put this thing back together, just reverse order. It's really not that hard. You're going to have to get a big C-clamp though to compress the piston in this caliper, so the new brake pads can go on. And you have to loosen up your master cylinder cap, the fill cap on the top, because the level is going to rise. And you want to give it some air up on the top so she won't blow the cap off or create a leak or blow a line somewhere with the added pressure you're going to put on when you collapse this piston. We'll cover that. Now if we were just doing our brake pads, we could just remove them right now and replace them. Like so. Not that bad, but I wouldn't take a chance. Now you see these cracks in here? All these cracks? That means this thing was running real hot. Probably because of the stupid rotor, which is too hard. And these pads are too hard too. If you have one wearing down, that's good. But if they're both really hard, you're going to get a pad that cracks like this. Once she starts cracking, this thing almost turns into like a piece of glass. Alright? It's too brittle. And whoever made this, probably the same people that made the stupid caliper there. I mean the rotor. It's just way too hard. They should have made this a little softer. Got a little better wear out of it, and it would work better and last longer and everything. And the car would actually stop. Another piece of crap. These were top of the line brake pads too. This was no garbage. They're shot. They're heat glazed. Next you got to put a C-clamp and a flat bar against both of your pistons and compress them and force the brake fluid out and all the way up to your master cylinder, and take your top off so the fluid can go back into your master cylinder. You don't want to blow out any lines or anything. I'm going to go ahead and finish cranking this thing down now and compressing them. Might be a good idea to spray some liquid penetrant around the opening of this rotor here, and you will need a thorax or a star socket to take out this retaining screw in order for this to come out. Now once you get your rotor off, you want to remove all the rust that's on the back here. I went over it with a wire brush, and then I put on some rust removal that's called a must for rust. Now you don't have to actually paint over that stuff. When it dries, it forms like a powder, and they say you're good to go, but it's up to you. And also, when you're using a thorax wrench, make sure you get one that's halfway decent, made in China. Yeah, try to find one made in the United States, because all that Chinese tools, they're going to snap off and break on you, and they're crap. Get a high quality thorax star remover. What the hell they call this thing? What do they call this thing here? It doesn't even say, but I got this at Sears. I had to hit it in with a hammer in order for it to really bottom out. Then I was able to get it out. So it looks like oh, one more thing I want to say. Over here, you notice I have lots of rust up on the upper control arm. Well, I went over that with a wire brush and my little chisel, and I got most of it off. Now I'm going to spray on here rust converter spray. Alright, because I hate the sight of rust. And you can spray, you know, there's a lot of rust over here too. And I sprayed some of that, you know, my rust removal on there. But then when it dries up, then I'm going to put my rust converter on top. Alright, so I'm ready to demask my rotor now and install it. Now when you go to put those big bolts on the back to anchor this to your front arm mounting bracket, let's call it, you have to use this high strength thread lock. Okay, this one's by Permatex. The last thing you want is this thing falling off. And when you want to crank that down just about as hard as you can with a breaker bar too, you get this thing really locked in place. Alright, we're talking about these bolts right in the back here, coming right in, that hold us right to this arm here. Okay? Word of caution. Just press in by hand your new brake shoes. Make sure they're inside of these new clips you put on, if you put new clips on. Make sure that these are tight up against your rotor. You don't have any space in between. Then you can go ahead and take your caliper down and go ahead and mount that on. Well, gents, that's about the end of this side. I'm finished with this wheel. Do the other one the exact same way. That should do it, you guys. This is Vince, Auto Restoration Videos. Take your time when doing one of these brake jobs. It's your life at stake. Don't take no shortcuts. Alright guys, good luck to you. See you in the next video.